Now we're going to have Andy come up and talk about Office 365 development and productivity in Office 365. Andy's pretty awesome because he is one of the top 10 learners on Microsoft Virtual Academy. If anyone knows what that is, it's online videos, and Microsoft has gamified it so that as you watch videos and as you learn and take the quizzes to prove that you've watched the videos, you earn points. And the amount of points he has would take me a few years to catch up to him of watching videos.
It's about 13,000 or 14,000.
It's pretty awesome. So without further ado, I'll let Andy take over.
All right. Thank you. Speaking of Mike there with the Internet of Things, I once had a co-op term with the Coast Guard. They actually asked me if I could just reprogram one of the Coast Guard ships, because of course I'm a VB programmer. Why shouldn't I be able to? Alright. So these slides, anybody at the Cloud Roadshow? Oh, I see we got people. Okay. So these came from the Cloud Roadshow, and I've borrowed them and modified them. Again, start off, I'm Andy Houghton. I'm a contract IT person. I work with Office 365 as an expert, also working with Microsoft, and I also do some database and SQL Server programming. So today, I'll just do a little bit of an intro. We'll talk about add-ins. Maybe we'll get a little bit off topic here. We'll talk about the Office 365 APIs, the Office Graph, which just came out of beta, the open platform, and then I'll give you some resources to continue on. There might be a demo in there as well. So, again, there's people have been asking about, well, maybe I should start learning this, Windows Phone stuff or Internet of Things and that. One of the things that I've noticed with Office is it's just one of those things that keep plugging its way along, and there's always a need for coders for Office. There's always been a need. Probably every one of you in here has probably spent an hour or two in Office, whether that's Outlook or Excel, today. So let's talk a little bit about the opportunity here. So we have about, one of the things I noticed 5 years ago when I started with Office 365 is people were saying, I'm not going to pay for a subscription. I bought Office 95 and it's 10 years later, and I bought that and I'm just happy using it. Now what you hear is, yeah, we got to really get on this Office. Well, about 2 years ago we got to get on this Office 365. Now what you hear is, we're on this Office 365. This thing is great. I don't have to worry about new updates. Things just come down. But I don't really know how to use it. So there's an opportunity there. Or I don't know, or I want it to expand it. And again, 4 trillion emails sent, most of them junk mail. So the developer vision. Microsoft had a problem because most Office development was VBA. Has anybody developed in VBA? Yeah, I see a few hands. Has anybody still supporting VBA? Right, well the problem is, Microsoft came up with Office 365. You have online Office 365, both with the old Hotmail accounts or the Outlook.com accounts, but you also have Office 365 online. You have iOS, you have Android, you have tablets, and they've got to do something better than VBA. So the idea is you've got users, you've got data. There's a lot of data. Does any PST files or message email stores? Anybody know what one of the largest ones you've ever had to deal with? Does anybody pick a number?
I've had 4 gig PST files.
4 gig PST files.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking.
Forever, baby.
What's that?
Email forever.
Yeah, email
Don't delete
forever,
it,
that's
don't
right.
archive it, don't
I
delete it.
started out with an Exchange server in 1987, and I want every single one of those messages.
Yeah.
I actually worked for a company that was like that. And believe it or not, 10 years.
That was just my email.
What's that?
That was just my email.
Oh, that was your email. Well, so yeah, you've got all this data that, as previous speaker Mike was saying, you can mine, or you can mine them, and you've got users. And the idea, wow, it's animated, is that, you know, you can plug all this data in from file servers, from HTML, from email, and you can manipulate it or use it as a programmer. So the first part we're going to talk about is Office add-ins. Of course, the previous way was VBA, of course, but now how are you going to create an add-in that is going to run on iOS or Mac or Android? So what they've done, it's called the Office add-ins. They've recently changed the name, but it's the same product. They build it with web standards. They have the Office Interopt, and it's centrally hosted. So that web server, typically it's Azure, but it could be any web server that you have. And this web server interacts within Office. Again, typical kind of add-ins there. And that Office that you're looking at, that could be Office up in the cloud. So that could be your cloud version that could be your cloud version of your email. Or it could be Android or whatever that is. I'm sorry, I run a Windows phone. Everything else is that. So you build these Office add-ins. They're up in the marketplace. They're discoverable. Sorry. They're discoverable, and anybody in the world, those 1.2 billion users, can use them, and you can have advertising. The typical app model, advertising, you can charge 99 cents for them, that sort of thing. And these all add-ins, there's an email add-in, a task pane add-in, a content, and then an add-in commands. So we're going to do a little demo right now, a simple add-in. And again, this worked at home. I know it's the demo gods can be a little bit harsh.
You didn't make your sacrifice?
What's that?
You didn't make your sacrifice?
No, I did not. So we'll see how this goes. So we pull up Visual Studio. It's on. So we pull up Visual Studio. I'm just going to turn a little bit over this way. See the screen? We go up. File. New. Project. And by the way, this requires the Office add-ins to already be installed. So if you're on a limited connection, you may want to install it ahead of time. Go to Office add-ins. Change the name. Of course, demo A. And we're going to create a task pane. That was one where there was a pane on this side, sort of like Solution Explorer over there. Next. So you're going to target it to Excel, PowerPoint, Project, and Word. And you're just going to run it through. So while this is going through and doing that, VBA, Office 20, this might be a good time to talk about VBA. Office 2016 is the first VBA update in years. I can't remember whether it's 6 or 9 years. So VBA in Office 2016 or Wave 16 now actually works on the Macintosh. So if you have a Mac and you have the full subscription with the full Office apps, you can actually program in VBA, if you're a VBA coder. The downside to that, of course, is if you're calling any libraries or projects that are Windows 10 specific, it's not going to be a matter of just copying the code over into your Mac and running it. But if you're doing something that's internal, you can run it, and doing the conversion shouldn't be that difficult in many cases. All right, so we have it up. This is where the tricky part comes in. So what we've got here is the HTML. We have the body of it. We're going to head down here. We're going to take all of this out. That's just ditto for those 10 minutes. So what we're doing right here is we've created in the body a couple of buttons. Now we're going to do some JS. And we're going to So what we've got here is we've put in some HTML, and that's the buttons, and then in the JavaScript we've told it what the functions are. So we've told it what the functions are. That's why we haven't told it what they are. And there we go, we've added that. And you can see we're just adding some handlers, some event codes. We're kind of, you can see we're binding the different buttons to do actual work. And let's see if we can build this. So what we're doing here is we're building an application that is going to show up off screen, because that's the demo gods at work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to I can show you this later. I have it as a completed project, but for now, let's just head back to Office. So then the second part of what Microsoft is trying to do is to have the API. So the first part we were doing was just an add-in. It's adding in something that's got functionality within Office itself. But what if you're designing a web app, you've got all of these abilities up on the internet, and you want to use them? So it just came out of preview, graph.microsoft.com, and the idea is you can use that to call from your application that's on the web, and then it's wrapped up in APIs, because you can also do it with REST calls. However, the API wraps things up. But one of the things you might be thinking about, if develop an app, and I have it up there, how do you get access to the user's data? And that's with Azure Active Directory. So what's happened is when a company puts Office 365 in, one of the things they do for their infrastructure is a dir sync, and it syncs the on-premise Active Directory with Azure Active Directory up in the cloud. And then with the API calls, all you're doing is going off and saying, okay, I need this data from the user, so you're just pushing the user off. Do you know how sometimes when you sign in to Office 365, it says redirecting you to the company site and those sorts of things? All of that's handled with Azure Active Directory and the API calls. You just call the APIs, saying I need some data, and it just does it. And there you go. So what they're showing here is, could be something at Microsoft, it could be something at Contoso, or your company. And you can have different applications. And even apps that are part of it. And again, the way they handle, there's permissions within the application itself. You know, so permissions within the application itself. There's also permissions that the user has. So the application, these two things combined. So the application may be asking for some sort of privilege, but if the user doesn't have it, then the application will not get it. And then the SDK and libraries, they're talking about, of course, Microsoft.NET's fairly well developed. Some of the PHP stuff is not so much. I've just got a few minutes left. I want to talk about your applications and your add-ins. So the add-in Office Store, that means you put it up and you sell it, or it's available. There is some available to everybody. There is some things coming in where an individual company can just have their apps available for just their employees, but that's not there yet. The add-in catalog, it can be a web server or an Office share. I thought this was really neat. I was doing some work with this this week. You can put it on the share, and then you just have your manifest files and all of the systems that you need right there on the share, and you can change it up, do whatever you need to do for deployment. Much nicer than VB, where you're trying to distribute maybe a VBA add-in through email or some other absolutely crazy old style method. They have a corporate add-in catalog, just talking about what I just said. And resources. Some of these, so dev.office.com is the place to go. Write this down. I'll give these to Lori if she wants to put them up on the meetup page. Logs.office.com. Even if you're just working in Office, that's good. And the Office.com roadmap, this is what's coming up, what's changing. That's really important. I use that quite a bit, just go in there about once a month and just see what's happening. And then Microsoft is big on their developer launch program. They're really putting a lot of effort into Office 365 development because they know so many people have it. And they know Office development will drive Azure, and Azure will drive more licenses and more revenue forward. And that's why I would bet on Office 365. So it's dev.office.com/dev program. Even if you're not going to do development, I hope you are, but if you're not, there's a free developer subscription. You get a free tenant, free version of Office for a year. So even if you're not going to necessarily go there and do development, at least go there and maybe get a free version of Office for your home or to try out. And how much time have I got now?
2 minutes.
Oh, 2 minutes. All right. So these are just parts that are out there. There's the Office Development Podcast. There's an Office Development Podcast you can search for. Channel 9, Stack Overflow, Twitter, the User Voice, there is a couple of things there that I want to add, and that is that GitHub, if you go to github.com/officedev, OFFICEDEV, they have a whole bunch of resources there. Everything from VBA add-ins for the new Office 2016, the new stuff that's coming out, all the way up to what we were presenting today, as well as how to use the APIs, as well as patterns and practice. It's called patterns and practice for Office 365 development. That's my little demo for today.
45 seconds.
45 seconds. Okay, that's not enough time to recompile that application. So I can take any questions. Does anybody have any questions? Well, if you think of any and you want to talk to me afterwards, just come up and talk to me and we'll talk. Okay, thanks.